What's up? Good morning, everybody. This is Jordan Tremaine with All the Things here for another book review, and today we're talking about a book that I've wanted to read for a long time, but for some reason never got around to it. Finally went on a road trip to San Francisco, so I had a chance to listen to it on audiobook, and I'm glad that I did. I listened to it again on the way back, and the book I'm talking about, I bet all of you have heard about, and if you haven't read the title, you've heard a reference to it, and so I'm going to get right into it. This book is called The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, and we're going to talk about it. Okay, so The Prince, I think a lot of people may not have heard of the title of this book, but I think a lot of people have heard of the reference, like, that's Machiavellian, and that's coming from this book. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote the book, The Prince, but I think a lot of people refer to things as Machiavellian, which are things that are coming from the content of this book. This book was written a long time ago, like back when like princes lived in castles and like rode around on horses and had like little satchels of gold and stuff like that. But I think it's still relevant today, kind of like Sun Tzu's Art of War. Even though that's talking about like ancient Chinese warfare, like the principles are dealing with people in conflict, so that's still happening today and it's still relevant. And I think the same for this book. But the prince is talking about actual princes. And a prince is like, you have kings, and kings have like their kingdom and their little scepter and their crown. And they're like, yo, I run the kingdom. But princes, they kind of run districts. So, like smaller kingdoms, which are called princedoms or, I don't know, little places. And this is talking about, this book, The Prince, is talking about the ways that people can build their own state and craft their state that's successful using examples that happened at the time and ways that people can fail to create their state or their empire, and ways that over time people can make decisions that get their land taken away from them or get their power taken away from them. And really, the art of statecraft, the art of building a place that you run. And it goes and it gives a lot of examples of certain things you should do, certain things you shouldn't do. And a lot like if you've read that book I did a review on, which is called The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. It says a lot of stuff that's just like kind of matter of fact, because Niccolo Machiavelli worked in a lot of the courts of princes and kings during his earlier years, and then he wrote this book, The Prince, in his later years. So he has a lot of experience, and he just talks about some stuff that's like, yo, this is how it is. And it was very surprising to me to hear some of that stuff and hear the way he thinks about it and the way he's seen kings and princes run their territories. And he's just like, yeah, this is just how it works. And that was very surprising to me. But it was a lot like the feeling I got when I was reading The Wealth of Nations, where Adam Smith was talking about this is just how economies work. It can be very surprising, it can be very unexpected, but if that's how it works, I guess, that's how it works. So, The Prince, I like it because it goes through how to build a territory, how to maintain a territory, and then a bunch of ways that you can mess up and lose the territory. And you can think about this specifically as like conquest of physical land, but you can also think about it like building a business, or building a family, or building a partnership. And those things are territories, I guess. But it's about engaging with people and trying to create a team. And then it gives you some strategies that, depending on your ethics, you may like or may not like. But I think what I appreciate about this book is, even if you don't agree with some of the stuff that Machiavelli is saying, he's not trying to tell you what to do. He's saying, from experience and from what I know, this is effective. And if you don't want to do it because of your ethics or your morals or your religion or whatever, that's up to you. But this is what can happen, and other people are doing this, and it is effective. So you may want to know about it, even if you're not willing to do it. And I appreciate that a lot, because I think a lot of times people, they try to tell you what is right based on what they think is right. And I think he's just trying to tell you what is, not what's right or what's wrong. He's just saying, this is, and this is what will happen from my experience and from history if you do that. And I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but if you want this, do this. If you don't want this, then don't do that. and he's giving you the choice. So I really appreciate that about this book, and I appreciate that this book doesn't talk too high-minded. It has some kind of old-timey references, but in the audiobook version that I got, it had some like explanations. So like there's this phrase called "with chalk in hand." So like if a king strolls into your place with chalk in hand, that didn't make any sense to me. But the version that I got, it explained that that phrase meant normally kings come into other territories with a sword in their hand, but if they come in with chalk in their hand, that means they're just there to like mark up territory and say, oh, this is going to be a bank, oh, this is going to be this is going to be that, because they're not concerned about war, because they're just going to take over. And that's like some stuff that you may lose from reading the original transcript without stuff to help you. But most of this book is understandable for somebody in the 20th century or the 21st century. I like it a lot. Gives you real world examples, and then at the end it gives you this history of this guy Castruccio, and Castruccio, maybe that's how you say it, I forget. But from his birth to him trying to build a territory and all the little stuff he did throughout his life and how it caught up with him or how he was able to overcome. So I really do like how it gives you the real world examples of stuff that actually happened. He's not making up examples. If you go back in history, these people really lived, and this stuff really did happen. Sometimes you look at history can be kind of weird because depending on who wrote the history, the loser or the winner or a spectator or an ally or an enemy, it can sound very different. But these events really happened, and this is his interpretation of them because he was alive during it, and he had some hand in it because his job was to kind of help with statecraft and be around that kind of stuff during that time. So I love that he's speaking from experience and not just talking a bunch of hot air, and that the book has some good strategies for how to deal with difficult people or how to win friends and influence people. I don't think it's talking about it from like a self-help, positive, righteous vibe. It's just like, hey, this is how a lot of people think and run. So if you want to be friends with them, you got to do these certain things. Also, be careful. Don't do things like this. Like, don't think you can win friends by giving them stuff, because they're just going to act nice to you as long as you give them stuff. But when push comes to shove, they're going to protect themselves. And they're going to act really nice to you and act like they're there for you and act like they got you as long as you give them stuff and things are good. But as soon as stuff turns bad, unless they're tied up in it and unless they have some stake in the game, they're not going to help you. And that's like really good to know, where like if you want to make alliances that can help you when you're down, you have to be in step with them. You have to be in lock with them. So if something bad happens to you, it has to be bad for them too. Because if it's bad for you and not bad for them, they're just gonna be like, oh, well, that sucks for you, and they're gonna leave. And it doesn't matter how friendly they are in peacetime. And it gives some advice like that and some real stuff that's like, wow, that's like not nice to hear, but it's good to hear before instead of learning it during it while it's happening. So I like this book. I listened to it twice because it was that interesting, and it was I think it was like, it's less than 10 hours on audiobook, so it's not that long of a book. Some books I've read are like 30 hours on audiobook. Gravity's Rainbow is 52 hours on audiobooks. Some books are super long, but this book is like, it's listenable and it's very readable, and I would recommend this book. I think it helps see people from a different light. It helps you understand some of the stuff people might be trying to do to you. So even if you don't agree with the stuff he's saying, like, I don't want to do that to people, it helps you see like, oh, maybe someone's doing that to me, and now that I can see that, I can deal with it differently. So the book is The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. I appreciate this book. I'm glad that I finally read it, and it's off of my to-read list, and it's on my done list, and I'm actually doing a book review on it. But I appreciate this book. I think it's worth a read. It has good ideas, and now that I've read it, I think it really helps when people say like Machiavelli, and like now I know more about what that means. So this has been Jordan Tremaine with All the Things. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for books for me to read that you think I would find interesting, or you think that are worth a review, a lot of the books that I review or read on this channel are books I'm interested in, and books that I really think people should read, that I really think help people but are not that popular, or that people don't know about, or that maybe people have stigmas about, or something like that. And I'm trying to encourage people to read and look into it for yourself and learn and grow and challenge yourself. So if you have books like that that you think would be good for this channel, please suggest them to me and I'll give them a look and see what I can do about that. But this has been Jordan Tremaine with All the Things. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.